Please call the meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. We'll move on to approval of the minutes of the meetings held September 27th and October 6th at 3 and October 6th at 5. Do you have a motion to approve said minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Those are approved. We have one person signed up to address the school board on non-agenda items. Mr. Chad Bishop, you'll get 5 minutes. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
I'll put this in the overhead.
I'm sorry.
Is it possible to put this on the overhead?
On the overhead? Yeah, I don't, is it on, Deanne? I'm not in charge of that, so I better ask if it's working or on.
I didn't let you know. Sorry.
Thank you, Deanne.
Thank you. My name is Chad Bishop. I live at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. In my last statement to this body, I asked that you consider enhancing your curriculum to better prepare our children for recognizing and dealing with propaganda. I referenced the 1928 book by Edward Bernays of that name. Today, I would like to discuss the concepts found in George Orwell's 1949 dystopian science fiction novel, 1984. First, doublethink. In 1984, Orwell described the concept of doublethink, which Oxford defines as the acceptance of our mental capacity to accept contrary opinions or beliefs at the same time, especially as a result of political indoctrination. Tying this concept back to the secondary topic last week, anti-racism, I'd like to quote one of my new favorite rappers. His name is Zuby, and the song is called Hallelujah. It's appropriate, I assure you. Sometimes artists can express things that we, the average person, can't. You claim to love diversity, but hate when it's political. In every university, the privilege is liberal. You can't be conservative or even individual. Call it anti-racist, but it's race discrimination. You say all whites are racist. That's a racist accusation. You think the black is lesser, so you lower expectations. Always trying to be a savior, no one asked for your salvation. Given the description and definition of doublethink and the concept of anti-racist as described by this artist of African descent, not that it matters to me, but it does to some, is anti-racism a good example of Orwell's doublethink? Oxford defined Orwell's concept of the memory hole as an imaginary place where inconvenient or unpleasant information is put and quickly forgotten. During our last presidential election, one significant piece of information that may have been very damaging to one of the candidates was memory hold by the mainstream media and social media. The propaganda put forth was that this information was clearly Russian disinformation, and 50 different members of the intelligence community signed a letter to this effect. Did you know that emails handled by large providers are tracked? Cryptography is used to fingerprint emails using math and computer science in such a way that they can be proven to be legitimate or disproven at a later date. This is called domain keys identified email, and it was in place several years ago. One particularly capable technical expert was approached by a journalist with the full email data, including the headers. This would contain the DKIM information. This expert documented the methods he used to cryptographically verify in a way that cannot be spoofed with known technology prior to the election. He did it in public and in such a way that any curious journalist could have replicated this and verified prior to the election. 10% for the big guy. In addition to teaching them about propaganda, please teach our children about censorship and the memory hole. Why do I bring this up, and how does it apply to our schools? I have seen and heard the words diversity, equity, and inclusion used by the board candidates, and in policy. They seem to be in vogue. To paraphrase Inigo Montoya in The Princess Bride, I worry that I do not think it means what you think it means. Oxford defines Orwell's concept of newspeak as the name of an artificial language in George Orwell's 1984, now used to denote ambiguous euphemistic language used chiefly in political propaganda. While I do not necessarily subscribe or promote every definition in the following resource, you should be aware and take into consideration that a significant portion of the people you serve do. My ask and my recommendation is that you seek to clarify your definitions for these phrases at every opportunity, because the way they are used and understood vary between the common person, policymakers such as yourselves, and political activists. For example, you'll have a copy of this in your inboxes, so hopefully this is helpful. Social justice. What they mean is group entitlements, which is the reframing of particular political demands as universal moral imperatives, a denial of just rewards to individuals who follow the law. Critical race theory. What they mean is belief that people of European descent make society racist for their own benefit, which is the view that racism is baked into the system and inescapable. The view that racism is present even if no one is racist. The view that all disparities in group outcomes are due to racist systems. There are several other definitions in this cheat sheet. It's called the cheat sheet for policymakers. I would ask that you review it and give it some consideration, please. I share your goals of make this Sioux Falls School District the best in the country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chad. We will move on. There were no one signed up for any of the agenda items to speak, correct, Bev? Thank you. We'll move on to approval of the agenda for this evening. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is approved. Now to the good news report. Thank you, Deanne.
Good evening. The Sioux Falls School District, its students, staff, and its families are lucky to have 5 devoted school board members who are invested in the highest quality public education possible for the children of this community. Each of you have committed to 3-year terms. Some of you have committed to multiple terms over time and have boldly served through some very challenging times. The Associated School Boards of South Dakota recognizes that commitment, and once again, they have awarded you, the Sioux Falls School Board, the gold level rating through their recognition program called ALL. ALL stands for Act, Learn, Lead. This award began in 2016, and every year since that time, the Sioux Falls School Board has received the gold level rating. Now, how do you get a gold level rating? Well, a point system is used to measure members' participation in outside activities with ASBSD, board development and training, and also participation in training on the local, state, and national level, along with your demonstrated leadership. So tonight, we say thank you for your continued commitment to the students of the Sioux Falls School District. Through the bond vote in 2018, the boundary planning in 2019, the pandemic in 2020, still present today, you've offered unwavering support to our students, staff, and families. You've taken in tons of information, considered it all, made some tough choices along the way, and then you've both been praised and criticized for those decisions. Through it all, you've kept the education of our 24,000 students and our 3,400 staff members at the center of your work. And for that, we say thank you and congratulations on achieving Gold Level All Award from the Associated School Boards of South Dakota. I'll present to Cynthia.
Thank you to all the board for participating in this. We received this award based on our outside commitment to participating in these activities, which help educate us on issues in our state. The state organization is very good in helping in guiding us and also in allowing us to speak with other school districts within the state to kind of bounce ideas off, see what they're dealing with, and help us as a board to make our decision making. So thank you very much for all of you participating in this. I appreciate it.
Well, part 2 is you all understand the importance of conducting effective public meetings and the importance of keeping record of what happens at those particular meetings. So for our 150th anniversary update, I want to share with you an early manual of the Board of Education of the City of Sioux Falls. I want to read a couple of articles from this manual. Article 1 says the officers required by law to be elected at the first regular meeting in May each year are president, vice president, clerk, and treasurer. A majority of the members shall be requisite for the election of said officers. The regular meetings of the board shall be on the last Friday of each month at 8:00 p.m. in the office of the board. That sounds like a fabulous time for a meeting. Special meetings may be called by the president or vice president, or in the case of their absence or inability to act, by any member of the board by giving a personal or written notice to each member of the board at least 24 hours before the time of such special meeting. Article 2 goes on to list the standing committees. Now think of the committees that you all serve on as part of your board duties. The standing committees of the board are Buildings and Grounds, Finances, Teachers and Discipline, Textbooks and Course of Study, Rules and High School, Supplies and Apparatus, Janitors, and a local visiting committee for each of the schools. Little different than some of the committees you serve on today. And then I missed Article 3. Oh, that was Article 3. Sorry about that. I missed Article 2. My apologies. The order of business at that meeting on Friday at 8 p.m. would be at the hour of the meeting or as soon as after a quorum shall be present. The president shall call the board to order and shall proceed to business in the following order: calling the roll, reading and correction of minutes, report of standing committees in alphabetical order, reports of special committees, bills and claims, communications from the superintendent, unfinished business, and new business. So follows kind of similarly your agenda for this evening. Bev Chase has been the one in charge of keeping the minutes of the Sioux Falls School Board for the last 30 years of our 150. She has gone through the minutes and found some real gems of stories through her years. So she's going to come up and give a brief synopsis of the board minutes and the importance of those.
Hello, board. Dr. Stavum, Mr. Beek. I have brought the very first book, 1871. You to look at. And I'm so pleased to be here to talk to you about the school board records and minutes and how we are keeping them. Beginning with the minutes of 1871, I have read every set of minutes between then and now. 97 books. There were many, many minutes to read. A lot of them were very scrolly handwriting that was hard to decipher, but I got it done. What I have found in the minutes over the past 150 years is that as time passes, we do many of the same things year after year that we did in the late 1800s. We count our students today. Back then, we counted our pupils. We hired staff, we adopted budgets, we passed bonds to build schools, we built new schools, we held elections to elect the board members, and past boards worried about student grades and discipline in the schools and illnesses in school, just like we do today. In the old days, think TB, yellow fever, polio. Today, think COVID. As time marches on, the happenings at schools have continued. We still teach reading, writing, and arithmetic like in days gone past, but now we include STEM, CTE, project-based learning, language immersion, and technology has infiltrated every aspect of schools, from administration to teaching to student learning. I like to tell people our schools are doing the same thing we did last century, but we do it so much better. And we don't stop just teaching. We also provide meals, social workers, skilled nurses, counselors, transportation, fine arts, and many, many athletic and PE activities for our students, all of which is documented in the minute books. We have gone from handwriting minutes to typing them on a manual typewriter to electric typewriters, to word processors, and finally moving on to our computers. The minutes used to be by board meeting dates only. It was hard to find things from year to year. So July 13th, 1931, the school board adopted action number 1. We began tonight's meeting at action 38962. That's a lot of actions taken by many, many boards. In the late 60s, we adopted a minute reference file. If you read our minutes, it always says the MRF. And the minute reference file allows us to save all the reports from every school board meeting. In the old days, that meant writing the action number and the MRF number and everything on a piece of paper and filing that paper, never to be destroyed. Today, we record the action number, the date, the MRF number on a PDF, move the PDF from my computer to the file director system, which is where we store all of our documents, and I don't produce a single piece of paper. So we have scanned all of the minute books and the MRFs into the file director system, but we keep the official minute books as we are required to by state statute. So today, if you called me and you wanted to see the minutes from 1935, I would call them up on the file director system. And if you wanted to see the enrollments, I would be able to find them in short order. And that goes all without touching these fragile old books. There are so many interesting stories in the minute books, many of them that we would just shake our heads and say, wow. One of my favorites is from the rural school, which was Lincoln Elementary, way out in the country. Today, that address is 9th Street and Grange Avenue. It seems some boys were brought before the school board to answer for not singing in music class. When the school board president asked them why they weren't singing, the boys answered, well, we were looking at the gun we brought to school because we're going rabbit hunting after school. The boys were admonished by the school board to sing when the teacher asked them to, and they said they would. Case closed. I stand by for any questions.
Thank you for that history. It's so interesting to look back at all of that, and it's amazing that you can, recall all of that information for the district and the board when needed, because obviously we do, especially things like enrollment, curriculum, those type of things. It's very important to go back and look at that because that's how we learn.
And they are falling apart, so
Yeah, exactly.
we don't like to pull them out. All right.
Thank you,
so
Beverly
much
Deanne.
for sharing.
There were no new conflicts of interest reported, so we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda, and items 9A through D. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved. On to approval of the supplemental consent agenda. We'll go with 9A, 1 and 2, claims to Sanford Healthcare. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. That carries with one abstention from Board Member Ryder. On to approval of claims to Avera Health. 10B, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That carries with one abstention from Board Member Parker. On to 11A, reports of the superintendent, fall enrollment report.
Moonlighting.
Yeah, wow, drama for the fall enrollment report. Doug Morrison is going to share this with us. I think we all were kind of wondering what this would look like this year as we came through kind of an odd year last year, and we're happy to see it's headed back in the right direction. And so we'll get some details from Mr. Morrison.
Good evening. The purpose of tonight's report is to present to you the final enrollment FTEs back based on the active enrollments on the last Thursday in September. That's when the final enrollment is taken or the date used across the state. I presented to you earlier, a couple board meetings ago after the 4th school day, some preliminary numbers. So This is presenting those final numbers where they ended up. You can see we are sitting at 24,029. That's up about 117 K through 12 students. You can see K through 5 down a little bit, down 39, middle school down 16, and high school up about 171. And then you can see our junior K numbers grew a little bit, and our pre-K numbers grew a little bit versus where they were at last year at this time. So all in all, up about 153 students. So if you look at that graphically over time, obviously in the 2021 school year, we took a drop. Now we're starting to see that grow again. And so that's good news, and I think we'll continue to see that grow. One indicator that's good news, or a measure of that, is if you look at the kindergarten class, it for this current year is 2,002 students. So that returned up over the 2,000 mark, which is good news, as we know last year's was down quite a bit. And then if you look across all the grade levels, those pretty much come out to the same numbers I gave you before. So that's probably the one highlight on per grade level that I would point out there.
Can I just add, for the first grade, we would expect that to be down as well, since last year.
We didn't see a return like we thought we would. It's just a low cohort for whatever reason. Kind of a follow-up to last board meeting. Give you some sense of what open enrollment into the district is doing. So after the state is all finished auditing their reports, we can get a report that shows our kids that are open enrolling elsewhere, and I can get that to you at a later date here in the next couple of weeks. But this is known open enrollment into our district, and you can see that's actually up about 76 kids, and our bigger contributors to open enrollments continue to be Brandon Valley, Harrisburg, and now you're kind of seeing Tri-Valley up a little bit. And I think that was to your point, board member Ryder, last time about looking at, anxious to see what the Jefferson open enrollment numbers down were doing. And so on the right-hand side there, you can see the open enrollment by school. And so you can see we've got about 60 kids open enrolling into Jefferson. So probably coming out of that pocket up there. So good news, our open enrollment has trended back from that standpoint. And really that's, as far as what's left in the enrollment process, the enrollment process there's a slight difference between the enrollment and the funding number. And so we're kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, being audited by the state now to come up with our funded number, because there's a few nuances. Generally, our funded enrollment number ends up to be 40, 50 kids higher than our actual enrollment, because there's some things we get funded for, some like pre-K kids that are of age that we can get funded for, and some other nuances with JDC and some other things. So that will be done over the next couple of weeks, but this is the enrollment that we're serving in our district. So with that, I would stand by for questions and ask you to acknowledge the fall 21 final enrollment report.
Thank you, Doug. And we have a lot of audience today, so I explained the last Friday of September is the date the state has set for us to present those numbers. That's why we present this report now for our funding, and that's why it's here. And junior kindergarten are those students who are still in that enrollment and funding mechanism, but they're not in the normal kindergarten. They're in a different program, and that's why we keep them on a separate line item for them. I know last year the legislature allowed school districts to use the higher of the two numbers between 1920 and 2021. Have you heard, or Todd, any discussion of continuing that on this year? Luckily, we're not in that situation, but I'm curious for other districts. And then I also saw that Senator Thune, I believe, is co-writing a bill federally for federal funds for students, for districts who saw some loss, and to try to hopefully push to get those kids back into school to use funds. Do we
I
know of
haven't-
anything?
I haven't heard anything, Todd,
Yeah.
about that.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
good news is we're back on the rise again, so.
Exactly, exactly. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to acknowledge the fall 2021 final enrollment report?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is acknowledged. Thank you. On to the district demographics report. Thank you.
This report just adds a little bit of the detail to the enrollment and gives you a current picture kind of what the makeup of our student body looks like. So Deanne will have some statistics that are the updated version to share with you as well.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Stavum. So tonight I bring to you the 2021 District Demographics Report, and that's just to provide you with an update on the demographics and achievements of our students and our staff in the Sioux Falls School District. All of those folks along the wall over there, if you have questions about this report, they provided the information. I simply am standing here delivering it. So I'm doing my part, and if you have questions, please make them do their part as well. I should say this report is one that we take into the community on a routine basis. Many times our community asks us to present about what's going on in the district, and so, and when, you know, my computer wants to be funny. All right, it should be working now. Again, many times in fact, the chamber just asked for some information, and many times our community groups who want us to come and speak to a civic group or a group of young professionals. This is the PowerPoint and presentation we take with them, and so it encapsulates all of the Sioux Falls School District information. As you know, our mission is something we live and breathe every day: to educate and prepare each student to succeed in a changing world. Our district priorities: academic excellence, well-being, community engagement, staff excellence, and the effective use of resources. Under each of those district priorities, you've heard many reports already of initiatives that we're working on that allow us to move the Sioux Falls School District forward and to support students in their pathways to success. Many of those initiatives are board reports that the community will be seeing coming forward in the next year or so. Our district priorities are really seen as the roadmap for the school district and holds us accountable to continue to make progress. This is the last 10 years of enrollment, similar to what Doug was just speaking about. We saw that decrease of 274 students last year due to the pandemic, creeping back with an increase of 117 this year. Our student diversity. For about the past 20 to 25 years, we had a change in diversity at about a rate of 1% to 2% each year, becoming more diverse over time. And that march continues on. We're more diverse than we were last year, and we're grateful for that. We have the world basically in the classrooms of each of our schools. Diversity exists in all buildings, not just certain based on their location, but our students have the ability to learn from their peers who came from another country, speak another language, have different belief systems and values, and we believe that makes the Sioux Falls School District incredibly rich. 40.7% of our students indicate that they come from some measure of diversity. The languages spoken in the Sioux Falls School District continue to be the top 5 languages are Swahili, Amharic, Kunama, Nepali, and our largest group is Spanish, of course. We have about 2,600 English language learners. The languages spoken in the report this year came out at 79. Last year we were at 91, and I kind of thought, okay, what's going on here? And many of the dialects and things like that, sometimes it really depends upon how those are coded in the system and such. And of course, we haven't had an influx of people from other countries recently in the Sioux Falls School District. And so that number currently sits at 79. This is a slide that I think we need to spend a little time on. For many years, we looked at the free and reduced numbers and really felt that that was a good record of the type or the kinds of families we have living in our district and the struggle that they have to provide the basic needs for their families. And many times we said that, our elementary numbers were probably the most accurate because most people are going to fill out the free and reduced application for their elementary student. It falls off a little bit at middle school, and by high school, we allow students to leave campus for lunch, or they can pretty well just, dissolve into, a space without necessarily eating over that lunch hour. So what happened, though, last year, of course, since the federal government allowed all students to eat free, there wasn't quite the incentive to fill out the free and reduced meal application. So as much as our community looks to these numbers, the numbers represented here, which were taken in May 2021, likely do not depict the truth. We may have to go back to the 2019-2020 school year to see that truer number. And the same is true for this school year because it is not a requirement. Now, we have asked families who believe that they may qualify to please fill out the free and reduced meal application because it is so integral to funding for schools. And really, many of our community partners use those numbers to go out and seek grants to further support and enhance educational opportunities beyond the school day. So this is really where that hits home, where we asked families, and we continue to ask, if at any time through the school year you believe your family situation would qualify you in a typical year for free and reduced. We really ask families to take that step, fill that out, because we don't know what the future holds in terms of whether the federal government is going to look at the number from this year or whether they're going to look back. So again, we really encourage families to do that if at any time they believe they would qualify. And again, all families will still receive the free meals through June 2020. 2022, June 2022, thank you. So we move on to our staff. We currently employ 1,869 students. Teachers, boy, I'm on a roll here. And those who have a master's degree or higher, 1,242 of those. Our non-teaching staff currently sits at 1,363 with an all-staff total of 3,474 employees. That also includes 150 subs because, as you know, we rely heavily on our subs, and they are often in our building on a pretty regular basis. Our teacher experience, our first-year teachers, we hired 86 this year. That's up from 69 last year. The numbers from 1 to 40 years pretty much remain the same. At 1 to 3 years, 198. Last year it was 182. 4 to 10 years, we currently have 556. 11 to 12 to 20 years, 564. 21 to 30 years, 352. 104 have been with us or have years of experience of 31 to 40 years, and 9 people who have been with education as a profession for 41 to 50 years. So you can really see those mid-career teachers who have been with us. You know, that's something we're gonna have to watch as they continue to age out. And we all know that the teaching profession, we've been really trying to get people to consider that as a profession. And we've even implemented the Teacher Pathway Program, trying to increase our diversity and encourage students to consider a career in education. Another breakdown here is teachers, nurses, counselors that are part of the Sioux Falls Education Association bargaining group. That's 1,864. We employ 512 education assistants, very important people in our classrooms to help support teachers, support students who have special needs. They do a variety of work for us. Our specialists and employment contract folks, 265. Custodians, just under 200. Always hiring, right, Jeff? Always hiring. Clerical, about 163. Child nutrition, 162. Administrators, 92. And our staff diversity went up by 2 percentage points this year. Becky talked to you a couple of weeks ago about those folks we hired on this year and the fact that we had many coming to us from other states. And so we were able to increase that diversity. And we continue to use that. We want that number to grow and be a more accurate reflection of the student population that we serve. Special education, ages 3 to 21, we serve 3,782 students. If you look K to 12, that number is 3,497, about 15% of our total student enrollment. And that number has been about the same for the past couple of years, about 15%. And for several years, we've looked at if our special education population were a school district by itself, how would it fall out? And our special education population would now be 7th largest in the district, behind our own, in the state, behind our own enrollment numbers, Rapid City, Harrisburg, Brandon Valley, Aberdeen, Watertown, and then our 3,497 would be 7th after that. And we serve 2,565 students on 504 plans. Those students have accommodations that improve their access to education. And then our academic success, our graduation rate, our on-time grads at 4 years, coming in as freshmen and leaving 4 years later as seniors, 85%. Although we don't give up on anyone. If someone is staying with us for 5 years or 4.5 or whatever it takes, we do not give up on students. So we have a completer rate of 89%. Our ACT scores continue to outpace the state and national average. Sioux Falls students do very well on that ACT score for enrollment into colleges. And our future prepared indicators of college course readiness, assessment readiness, and our combined readiness continue to increase over time as well. And finally, Dr. Stavum has said there are no limits on how far we can go when we learn together, focused on providing the very best experience for every person in our school district, becoming the best in the nation. And with that, I would ask you to acknowledge the district demographic report for 2021.
Thank you, Deanne. Any questions or comments for Deanne? Well, thank you for all this information. It helps us obviously guide our district on where we want to go and making sure with our priorities and this information we can keep trudging down that path to hopefully get to Dr. Staben's goal. But love seeing those ACT scores and how we're serving as students. We're obviously helping them to be successful and giving them a good foundation. So thank you very much. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the district? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of acknowledging the district demographic report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved. Do I have a motion to move into executive session for under SDCL 1-25-2?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of moving to executive session signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.